Morning's number is 8. The U.S. has already curbed travel from 8 African nations in an effort to combat the Omicron variant of the coronavirus. And now the Biden administration plans to tighten travel rules further. According to a person familiar with the matter, that means all air travelers to the U.S. will be tested within a day of their departure, regardless of vaccination status. President Biden plans to announce the new requirements later today. Currently, vaccinated travelers must get tested within 3 days of boarding their flight to the U.S. Under the change, that would be cut to 1 day. So here to discuss this is Dr. Amish Adalja. He is a senior scholar with the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security at the Bloomberg School of Public Health. Dr. Adalja, we always love having you here. First of all, is this the right move from what we're going to hear from President Biden? What do you think?
It's definitely better than the blanket travel bans that he initiated because those don't really work. They actually end up penalizing those countries in South Africa that were diligent and discovered this variant and alerted the world to it. So this is much more preferable. I think the question is going to be, do we have the testing infrastructure to do that? And if it's going to be 1 day, these have to be antigen and home tests. You're not going to be able to get a PCR test turned around that quickly. So we've got to make sure that there's ability for people to actually comply with it. But it's certainly much more preferable than these blanket travel bans that he issued.
But Dr. Adalja, can the tests that are even out there right now detect the Omicron variant? I thought it would need to go into sequencing to be able to detect if people do in fact have that variant. So what would testing actually do?
The testing would tell you whether or not you're positive for COVID-19. To determine which variant you have, that's more sophisticated testing, but that's not what you're trying to do there. You're trying to catch COVID-19 cases. So any of the tests will tell you, yes, you're positive. Whether it's Delta or Omicron doesn't matter, then you don't get on the plane. Then some of those can be tested for Omicron in more sophisticated situations. But what they're trying to do is really keep COVID-19 off of planes, off of entry into the United States. And that's any test can tell you whether or not you have COVID-19.
Do you anticipate, though, the U.S. to take a further stance, potentially doing travel bans, if this gets even more concerning than it already is? And if that does happen, what would be the issue with that? I know you've been pretty critical about travel bans in general.
Well, the U.S. has already done travel bans for 8 countries. They did travel bans during the Trump administration as well. Why I'm critical is because they don't work. When you're dealing with an efficiently spreading respiratory virus, it is already gone from the place that it was discovered in. So, for example, if this was discovered in South Africa, we now know that this was spreading in the Netherlands even before it was even discovered in South Africa and Botswana. So why is the Netherlands not on that list? Why doesn't the travel ban apply to U.S. citizens or permanent residents? You can just go from one country to another and then fly back that way. So these are not really travel bans. They're a lot of theater. And they took a couple of days to get into action. And then the other point is, why are you penalizing a country that really did a great job at alerting the world to this variant? Because now what's the incentive for the next variant? Maybe that's in some other country. Are they going to actually announce it if what they get is not praise and thanks, but punishment? We're hearing in South Africa that they can't even get reagents now to do the tests that they need to do to understand the severity of Omicron or to understand what its significance are because of the travel bans. So these things are disastrous, but they're political red meat for politicians who like to look like they're doing something, even if they're doing 100% the wrong thing. The travel bans were wrong in the Trump administration and they're wrong in the Biden administration. They should be rescinded immediately.
Well, what if it's giving people peace of mind, though, Dr. Adalja? I mean, we heard President Biden the other day say people shouldn't panic. But from what I've heard, I've been traveling a little bit. People are panicking a little bit. So if not the travel bans, what can the FDA, the CDC, the White House, what can they do?
Well, first of all, I don't think this is real peace of mind. This is a false sense of security, because if you say, oh, we're not letting people in from South Africa and Botswana, what about the people from the Netherlands? What about people from Canada where this is already there? So this makes no sense at all. It's a false sense of security. It wastes public health resources, and it gives people the wrong idea that this is how you deal with it. What we need to do is test, trace, and isolate. We have to scale up testing. Why do home tests still cost so much money here? Why do you have to drive around all over town looking for home tests when in England they just have them there? They should be in vending machines. We still need to work on getting first and second doses into people. We've got a very divisive country now on the vaccine, but the way that we become more resilient, the way that I have more peace of mind over Omicron or any other variant, is getting those 60 million people who have zero doses of vaccine in them, more vaccinated. That's how we deal with this. And I also think we should be reassured that when it comes to the vaccines, even if the Omicron variant is able to evade some of what the vaccines do, it's not going to be able to erase everything a vaccine provides us. Meaning protection against serious disease, hospitalization, and death is still going to be something that we can count on. And we're already seeing that in the data that's emerging from South Africa, although it's limited. So I don't think there's any reason to panic, but I think the facts, if you actually go through them, should reassure people. I think it's these knee-jerk reactions from politicians that panic people because they don't know what to think, because this is what they're seeing the action being taken all over the world, and they think that this merits panic when it really just means that you need to be much more vigilant. You need to take this seriously, but it's not as if we're back in January or March of 2020. We've got so many more tools, so much more knowledge about COVID-19 that we don't need to return to this panic and blunt tools that have a lot of negative consequences.
When do you think the U.S. will confirm the first official case of the Omicron variant? And I wonder, for hospitals that like you're working in, what are you doing to prepare? Are you encouraging people, yes, to get vaccinated, to get boosters? What are you saying?
This is going to be diagnosed in the United States imminently. It's likely already here. Like I said, this was already spreading in the Netherlands before South Africa even detected it. So it's likely that there are cases. We don't do enough testing. We don't do enough sequencing. So it may take us some time to find the official first case. But be assured that when we find the first official case, it's not really the first case because we kind of don't have full situational awareness in the United States of which variants are spreading. How do you prepare for this? I think it's really the same as preparing for Delta. It's getting people vaccinated, making sure people are getting tested, making sure those, especially at high risk, get their boosters. All of that is part of a general plan to prepare for COVID-19 and all of its variants. So there's nothing specifically new that we have to do for the Omicron variant. And remember, it's Delta that's killing about 1,000 Americans every day. So we still have a lot of work to do with Delta, let alone think about Omicron.
Yeah, certainly a lot to still pay attention to. Amish Adalja, senior scholar with the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security at the Bloomberg School of Public Health. Thanks as always for your time. And we should note the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies.